The clock was approaching midnight. I was getting ready for bed when the phone rang. The voice on the other end sounded in a panic. "Frank, you gotta get down here right away. Someone screwed up the computers. The entire magazine is gone." The deep voice was quite familiar to me, and in due time would become well known to all of you as well. It was my friend, Barack Obama. It was December 1990. Barack and I were in our third year at Harvard Law School, and earlier that year, he had made history when he was elected the first African American elected to be president of the Harvard Law Review. Generally considered one of the world's most prestigious academic legal publications, the Harvard Law Review was a student-run journal which was collaboratively edited by 80 of Harvard's best and brightest, which of course Barack was the best and the brightest. Now earlier that year, after he'd taken the helm of the journal, Barack had installed a new computer system at the Law Review. We didn't have a proper IT department, and because I was one of the most tech-savvy members of the editorial board, the task of setting up and managing our computer system and dealing with any issues that arose fell to me. This was why he was calling me on that cold December night. "Frank, you gotta get down here right away. Someone screwed up the computer system. The entire magazine has disappeared." "What do you mean the magazine's disappeared?" "I mean the system's crashed, dude. You gotta come down here right away and try to fix it." Now this was bad, really bad. The Law Review came out on the 10th day of every month, and there had not been a late issue since World War II. And Barack had made it very clear there wasn't going to be one in his watch. In order for the December issue to come out on time, it needed to get to the printer the next day. So if the issue had gone poof in the computer system, this was really bad unless I could fix it. "You got to get down here right away, man. We didn't know what's going on." "Okay, I'll be right there." There was Neue House, the stately Greek revival mansion on the edge of campus, which had served as the home of the Harvard Law Review since the 1920s. So I put on my parka and my winter boots, and I traipsed from my apartment to Neue House through the winter snow. Now, when I arrived, Barack was there along with the entire masthead. Their faces were uniformly glum. They said, "Man, are we glad you're here. We don't know what's wrong, you gotta fix this." I appreciated their confidence in me, but after all, I wasn't a real IT guy. I was just a law student. But I resolved to do my best. I knew that it was important that we try to get this fixed. So I went to my workstation and I started hammering away at my keyboard. I did diagnostic after diagnostic. I tried everything I could. I decompiled subroutines, I defragged macros, I ran, I looked through every file path I could think of. Nothing. Nothing was working. One by one, the senior leadership trickled out of the building on their way home. And Barack himself left sometime after 2 o'clock. I kept working. 3 o'clock turned into 4 o'clock. Now, I had pulled plenty of all-nighters before, of course, but never before under this much pressure or when so many people were counting on me. But I had to keep going. And around 6 o'clock in the morning, I suddenly got an inspiration to try something I hadn't tried before. So I wrote a little program and I put it in the computer, and there were some signs of life. Not a solution yet, but it was, at least I knew I was on the right track. So I revised the program, put it in again, a little bit better, and believe it or not, by 8 o'clock, I'd gotten the system back online. And the December issue was up on my screen. Now, minutes after I had saved it in the place that it was supposed to have been saved, and made a backup copy on floppy disks. You guys remember those? Barack came into the building and he made a beeline for my workstation. Well, any success? I decided to play a little trick on him, so I kept my affect perfectly still, and I said, I'm sorry, Barack. I worked on this thing all night, and well, I only just managed to get it back a few minutes ago. And then I cracked a smile. It took a moment or two for it to dawn on him what I had said. He said, really? You got the magazine back? I said, yeah, it's right here. And I showed it to him on my screen, and I handed him the floppy disks. And he looks at me and he shouts at the top of his lungs, Frank, you are the man! He gave me a high five. He then reached over me to grab the phone above my workstation, and he pressed the all page button. So his voice came booming over the intercom throughout the building. Hey everybody, listen up. Frank is the man. Frank is the fucking man. The magazine is back and we're on track. Well, 17 years later, flash forward to 17 years later, and that same Barack Obama was running for a different kind of presidency. And he came to my town in New Jersey for a campaign event, and I decided to go with my lovely wife, Suzanne. And we went there, and at the end of his campaign speech, he saw me in the back of the room. I'm kind of hard to miss, you know. And he motioned for me to come forward. So my wife and I made our way through the crowd to the front of the room, where he greeted us with a big hug and a big smile. And after I introduced him to my wife, he turns to her and says, Frank is one of my favorite people in the entire world. And I knew that even after all these years, I was still the man.